November's cold air seeped through the study windows. Judge Jang Do-hyun, 60 years old, but still maintaining his dignified appearance, sat in his leather chair holding a coffee cup. The black liquid reflected his distorted image, eyes betraying deep fatigue despite his composed exterior. 3 years since retirement, after removing his judicial robes, he had moved to this secluded suburban mansion, leaving behind Seoul's glamorous Gangnam apartment. When asked why, he always gave the same answer: "I want to spend my remaining years reading books in quiet solitude." But the truth was different. He was running away from his reputation, from people's gazes, and most of all, from himself. The walls were lined with books, constitutional law, civil law, criminal law, countless case studies. Once his weapons, they now felt like evidence weighing him down. Particularly, a theory of justice by Rawls on the top shelf seemed to mock him. His phone rang. Kim Lawyer, his junior colleague and longtime friend, Kim Tae-soo. "Judge, good afternoon. Could we meet today if you have time?" "What's the matter?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person." Tae-soo's voice carried unusual tension. Do-hyun hesitated. Since retirement, he had intentionally reduced contact with legal circles, part of his effort to sever ties with the past. "If it's that urgent, come to my house around 4 p.m. After hanging up, Do-hyun sighed deeply. Tae-soo was one of his few genuine friends, making the meeting even more difficult. The respectful gazes of those unaware of the truth sometimes cut like blades. At 4 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Tae-soo stood there, his face darker than usual, holding a brown envelope. "What is it?" "You don't look well," Do-hyun said, serving tea. "Judge." Tae-soo placed the envelope on the table. "Have you seen this?" The envelope contained photographs and documents. Do-hyun's face hardened instantly, pictures of himself from 30 years ago, shaking hands with a man and exchanging what appeared to be envelopes. "Where did this come from?" "An anonymous letter arrived at my office yesterday, along with these photos." Do-hyun's hands trembled slightly. The man in the photos was construction company president Park Seong-ho. What they exchanged wasn't merely a handshake. Tae-soo handed over another paper with neat printed text. "Truth will eventually surface. The world should know about Jang Do-hyun's past. This is just the beginning." "Judge, is this true?" Do-hyun didn't answer. Instead, he gazed out the window, recalling that day 30 years ago. 1993, the memory. Young Judge Jang Do-hyun was full of ambition, believing his mission was to realize justice in courtrooms. He dreamed of becoming a Supreme Court justice to reform the nation's legal order. And there was Yoon Seo-rin, his law school classmate, who became a lawyer, his lover and comrade. Together they vowed to create a better world. The turning point came during a major construction fraud case involving Park Seong-ho's Taepyeong Construction, accused of embezzling billions in construction funds. Political heavyweight Choi Soon-man approached Do-hyun. "This case isn't simple. If it expands, the political situation could become chaotic. For the nation's sake, shouldn't we approach this carefully? Consider your future. Becoming a Supreme Court justice requires political sensibility." Days later, Park Seong-ho met Do-hyun directly. "Judge, I made mistakes, but if this case grows, innocent people will suffer. My company employs thousands with their families. Tens of thousands could be affected." Park slid a black envelope across the table, a bribe disguised as gratitude for your hard work. On the day of sentencing, Do-hyun held two verdicts, one with the original prison sentence, another written the night before with probation. The defendant is sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, suspended for 3 years. The courtroom stirred. Park sighed in relief, but Seo-rin's face showed her faith crumbling. After the trial, Seo-rin avoided him. A week later, when he found her at her office. "How could you?" she said coldly. "The legal world is small." Park bragged while drunk about giving gifts to Judge Jang for favorable results. "Seo-rin, I had no choice." "No choice? I never thought I'd hear you say that. Is this the justice we dreamed of together?" "Go away." Never seek me again. Seo Rin disappeared from his life, leaving no trace despite his desperate search. Back to present. Is this true? Taesu asked. Du Hyun nodded slowly. 30 years ago. Yes, I took a bribe and changed my verdict in return. Taesu's face turned pale. Why? Does the reason matter? I don't want to make excuses. That night, another envelope appeared at his door with a photo of him and Seo Rin together, and a note, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Hangang Park, Banpo District, under Jamsu Bridge. Come alone. If you want to know the truth. Du Hyun's hands shook. After 30 years, the moment had finally come. But he didn't yet know this was merely the prelude to a greater revenge, and that the real hell was just beginning. At 4 a.m. in a small Mapo-gu studio apartment, Yoon Seo Rin, 45, began another sleepless day. Nearly 30 years of this. Routine, not insomnia, but the weight of her heart waking her early. Outside her window, the Han River flowed black through the darkness. Making coffee, she inevitably thought of him again. Jang Do-hyun, once her everything, now the enemy she must destroy. Her desk held an unfinished article, Judicial Corruption, Yesterday and Today, part of a series she'd pursued for over 20 years as a journalist. Exposing power's injustice, especially judicial darkness, was her mission. But nobody knew the truth. All her writing stemmed from betrayal and revenge against one man. Her phone rang. Her son Seong-hoon. Mom, you're up already. Early rising is habit. Why aren't you sleeping? Too much law school homework. Your articles must be exhausting too. I'm fine. Just focus on studying. That gives me strength. Mom, could we have dinner tonight? I need to discuss something. Seo Rin's heart pounded. She sensed what was coming. What about? Let's talk in person. After hanging up, she sighed deeply. The secret hidden for 27 years was approaching revelation. 30 years ago, after her final meeting with Do-hyun in 1993, Seo Rin's life completely changed. Witnessing her beloved man surrender to power was shocking beyond imagination. But worse awaited. A month after their breakup, she discovered her pregnancy. 7 weeks along, the news felt surreal. She was carrying Do-hyun's child. Happy news in other circumstances, but not now. Should she tell Do-hyun? But he had already abandoned her. Telling him would seem like blackmail or begging. She decided to raise the child alone, her final act of preserving dignity. Closing her law office, Seo Rin returned to her hometown Busan. Her parents were shocked by the sudden pregnancy news, but eventually accepted it. Where's the father? There isn't one. She refused further explanation. Spring 1994, Yoon Seong-hoon was born. Holding him first, she wept joy, sorrow, and fear intermingled. I'll never abandon this child. Her first promise to her son. Reality proved harsh. Being an unwed mother in 1990s Korea was unimaginably difficult. People's stares were cold, employment scarce. She joined a small Busan newspaper as a reporter. Low wages, but she wouldn't abandon journalism. Days reporting, nights writing, caring for Seong-hoon between. Mom, when's Daddy coming? 5-year-old Seong-hoon asked, realizing he lacked what other children had. We can be happy without Daddy, Seong-hoon. Why no Daddy? How could she explain to a 5-year-old? Your father chose power over justice. He betrayed Mommy and left. You have Mommy. Mommy's stronger and cooler than Daddy. When Seong-hoon entered elementary school, Seo Rin made a crucial decision returning to Seoul. She wanted growth as a journalist, and mostly to watch Do-hyun. Revenge, lingering attachment, she wasn't certain, just a strong desire to live in his city. Will we meet Daddy in Seoul? Seong-hoon innocently asked. Daddy lives in a different world from us. Different world, one we can never reach. In Seoul, she joined Hanguk Ilbo as a society reporter, gradually becoming a judicial specialist. Her sharp articles gained industry attention. Her judicial corruption pieces caused major reactions. Colleagues wondered about her obsession with courts, but she never explained. Seong-hoon excelled in everything: studies, character, especially justice. He couldn't tolerate unfairness from childhood. Mom, why do teachers ignore bullying? That's adult limitations, Seong-hun. But you must live differently. Always do right. I'll become a judge and punish all bad people. Hearing Judge, Seo-rin's expression complicated, but she couldn't crush his dream. In middle school, Seong-hun's dream solidified, becoming a righteous legal professional. His greatest role model was Judge Jang Do-hyun. Mom, do you know Judge Jang Do-hyun? Seo-rin's heart stopped. Why? I read about him. He's amazing. A representative of clean, fair judges. I want to become like him. How could she say the man her son admired had betrayed her? That he was actually his father? Yes, he's admirable. A lie, but necessary. 20 years passed. Seo-rin became a respected journalist, her judicial corruption articles winning multiple press awards. But she always felt regret she couldn't expose the truth she most wanted revealed. She possessed evidence of Do-hyun's 30-year-old corruption, details of bribes exchanged with Park Seong-ho, political deals. But she couldn't publish it. Their relationship would be exposed, requiring her to tell Seong-hun the truth. Instead, she chose indirect criticism, exposing similar cases. Do-hyun probably sweated reading her articles about judicial corruption. Seong-hun graduated Seoul National University Law School and entered the same school's law school. His dream remained becoming a judge, still revering Jang Do-hyun most. This year, important news reached Seo-rin Jang. Do-hyun had retired and moved to Seoul's quiet outskirts. Hearing this, long-dormant emotions awakened. 30 years of suppressed anger and revenge began boiling again. She decided to execute her long-prepared plan, exposing all evidence of Do-hyun's corruption from 30 years ago. Now retired, legally there'd be no problem, but socially it would devastate his reputation. After months of planning, she sent the first warning photos from 30 years ago to his junior colleague Kim Tae-soo. This was just the beginning. Present evening. At 7 p.m., Seo-rin waited at their appointed restaurant, a small Korean place Seong-hun loved. Mom, sorry I'm late. 27-year-old Seong-hun was tall and handsome. Sometimes looking at him reminded her of young Do-hyun. What's so serious? Mom, I want to know about my father. Seo-rin's breath stopped. The moment she'd avoided for 27 years had arrived. Why suddenly? Law school assigned family history research. But I know nothing about my father, not his name, not what kind of person. Seong-hun, I'm an adult now. Don't I have the right to know who my father is, why he left us? How could she explain? Your father is Jang Do-hyun, whom you most admire. But he's a coward who surrendered to power. Some truths are better unknown, Seong-hun. How can I live not knowing the truth? His voice held desperation. Seo-rin finally decided to reveal everything. Seong-hun, your father is. Her phone buzzed. A text from Do-hyun. Let's meet tomorrow night. I'll wait at Han River Park. Her hands trembled. Do-hyun had finally responded. After 30 years, their meeting was confirmed. Mom, what text? Nothing important. She put away her phone. I'm tired today. Let's discuss your father next time. Mom, please, just wait a little longer. Soon. I'll tell you everything. Seong-hun looked disappointed but didn't press further. However, determination gleamed in his eyes, the will to find truth himself. Returning home, Seo-rin retrieved a box kept for 30 years, containing memories with Do-hyun photos, letters, and evidence of his bribery. Tomorrow everything ends. She examined a college photo of her and Do-hyun. They were both pure then, filled with dreams of creating a just world. You betrayed first, Do-hyun. Now it's time to pay. But she didn't yet know tomorrow's meeting wouldn't simply settle the past, and would give Seong-hun irreversible shock. Night deepened. Seo-rin gazed out her window. Preparing for tomorrow, the moment of revenge, she'd awaited 30 years. Seoul National University Law School's auditorium held 200 students. Today's special lecturer was retired Supreme Court Justice Jang Do-hyun, speaking on A. Judge's conscience and social responsibility. Yoon Seong-hoon sat in the front row, heart racing with excitement to meet his idol. He had prepared notes and questions in advance. Esteemed future legal professionals. Do Hyun's voice commanded the silent auditorium. Despite his 60 years, his charisma remained powerful, dignified in his grey suit with penetrating eyes. Being a judge isn't merely applying legal codes mechanically. We handle living people's lives, bearing tremendous responsibility for their fates. Seong-hoon absorbed every word. Seeing his hero in person felt dreamlike. During my 30 years as a judge, I treasured conscience most. Sometimes external pressures existed. Sometimes personal interests could intervene. But a judge's conscience must never be compromised. Seong-hoon noticed something odd. Do-hyun's eyes flickered when mentioning conscience, as if hiding deep wounds. During Q&A, Seong-hoon raised his hand without hesitation. Justice, what should one do when judicial conscience conflicts with realistic pressure? Do-hyun paused, fixing his gaze on Seong-hoon. The young man's earnest eyes felt strangely familiar. Good question. Such situations inevitably exist, but a judge must never surrender to any pressure. One compromise can become lifelong regret. Seong-hoon felt deep resonance in Do-hyun's answer, like words born from experience. After the lecture, Seong-hoon approached Do-hyun courageously. Justice, today's lecture was deeply moving. Thank you. What year are you? Second-year law school student Yoon Seong-hoon. Yoon Seong-hoon. Do-hyun repeated the name somehow familiar. Where are you from? Busan. I came to Seoul with my mother. What does your mother do? She's a journalist at Hanguk Ilbo Society section. Do-hyun's expression subtly changed. Meeting a journalist's child felt uncomfortable given recent circumstances. I see. Your mother's name? Yoon Seo-rin. Do you know her? Do-hyun's world stopped. Yoon Seo-rin, the woman he betrayed 30 years ago. And this young man before him was her son? No, I don't know her. Do-hyun tried maintaining composure, but his voice trembled. They continued meeting regularly. Do-hyun observed Seong-hoon with complex emotions, while Seong-hoon treasured time with his respected senior. Justice, do you have children? My wife and I had none. Perhaps that's why you feel special to me. Do-hyun lied a half-truth. He had no children with his legal wife, but had a son with the woman he loved. That son sat before him now. Over time, Do-hyun discovered more similarities. With Seong-hoon's passion for law, belief in justice, even small habits. How many sugar spoonfuls in your coffee? 2.5. Why? Same as me. Really amazing. One day, shocking revelation came during dinner. Oh, Mom. Seo-rin stood at the restaurant entrance. 30 years had passed, but she remained beautiful though her eyes were colder. Seong-hoon, what are you doing here? Her gaze turned to Do-hyun. Their eyes met after 30 years. Mother, this is Justice Jang Do-hyun I always mentioned. Seo-rin's expression hardened. Do-hyun couldn't speak. Hello, reporter Yoon Seo-rin. Hello, Justice. Their formal greeting carried palpable tension. During the awkward meal, Seong-hoon chatted excitedly, while Do-hyun and Seo-rin barely spoke. Seong-hoon really respects you, Justice. He talks about you constantly at home. Seo-rin's words carried subtle sarcasm. Do-hyun caught it. Days later, Do-hyun discovered old case files. In YSR versus PSH case attorney list, he found Yoon Seo-rin's name. She had represented victims in Park. Seong-ho's case, the very case where he took bribes. September 1993, exactly 7 months before Seong-hoon's birth. All puzzle pieces fit. Seo-rin had gone to Busan pregnant and raised Seong-hoon alone for 30 years. The confrontation. That night at Han River Park, Do-hyun waited. At exactly 10 p.m., Seo-rin appeared. 30 years. Yes, 30 years. Silence fell as the river flowed quietly. About Seong-hoon. He's your son. Seo-rin spoke first. Do-hyun's breath stopped. I learned about the pregnancy in July 1993. right after you abandoned me. Seorin, back then, I don't want excuses. I raised him alone for 30 years without your help. Why? Why didn't you tell me? What would you have done? Abandoned power to come to us? Do Hyun couldn't answer. Seong-hun respects you. Ironic, isn't it? He reveres the father who abandoned him most. Now it's time to end everything. I'll tell Seong-hun the truth about your past and our relationship. If that happens, Seong-hun will be shocked. But he has the right to know. Suddenly a voice came from behind. Mother Justice? Seong-hun stood there, surprise and suspicion crossing his face. Seong-hun, why are you here? I followed Mother. You've been acting strange. What were you discussing? Silence fell. The moment of revelation had arrived. Seorin opened her mouth. Seong-hun, it's time to tell you everything. Fear filled Seong-hun's eyes. He sensed instinctively that what he'd hear would completely change his world. The truth revealed. Do-hyun spoke first. Seong-hun, your mother and I. We knew each other before. When? 30 years ago. When we were young. About your father. I'll tell you the truth now. Seorin looked at Do-hyun, who stood with bowed head. Justice Jang Do-hyun is your father. The world seemed to stop. Seong-hun couldn't comprehend the word's meaning. What? Did you say? Your father is Jang Do-hyun, the man standing before you. Seong-hun stared at Do-hyun, his respected justice. His role model was his father. Unbelievable. That's impossible. I'm sorry, Seong-hun. Truly sorry. Do-hyun approached carefully. No, this makes no sense. You said my father abandoned Mother. That's true, Seong-hun. Seorin's voice was cold. Your father abandoned me for power. Your father took bribes and changed his verdict. He received money from construction businessman Park Seong-ho for favorable judgment, ensuring his promotion path. Is it true? Seong-hun looked at Do-hyun. Do-hyun nodded. No more hiding. Yes, it's true. Seong-hun's world collapsed. The person he'd revered was a corrupt judge, and that person was his father. You're lying. You lived your entire life for justice. Calm down. How can I calm down? My entire life was a lie. Seong-hun trembled with rage, betrayal by his idol, and resentment toward his father, flooding simultaneously. Then what about my dreams? I wanted to become a righteous judge like you, but if you were corrupt. Don't come closer. I'm not your son. For 30 years, Mother raised me alone through hardships, finger-pointing, economic difficulties. And what did you do? Lived well with bribe money, while people called you an icon of justice. Do-hyun was speechless. Seong-hun's anger was justified. Mother, so your judicial corruption articles were also? Yes, for revenge, Seorin admitted honestly. For over 20 years as a journalist, I exposed corrupt judges because of anger toward your father. I no longer want to become a judge. Seong-hun, how can a corrupt judge's son speak of justice? The justice I pursued was an illusion. Don't abandon your dreams because of my mistakes. What do you know? Do you understand my heart? Living 27 years without a father. Mother, let's go home. I don't want to be with this person anymore. That night changed all three lives completely. Seong-hun took leave from law school, unable to dream of legal profession anymore. Seo-rin completed her 30-year revenge, but regretted hurting her son. Do-hyun lost everything, rejected by his son, past, exposed, most painfully watching Seong-hun abandon his dreams. But this wasn't the end, it was the beginning. With 30 years of hidden truth revealed, new conflicts and chains of revenge were about to start. The Han River night deepened. After that night at Han River Park, Jang Do-hyun's life completely collapsed. Clutching wine bottles in his study became his daily routine. The bare branches visible outside his window seemed to mirror his own situation. Seong-hun. Do-hyun muttered his son's name while staring at an empty glass. The son he didn't know existed for 27 years. That pure look in his eyes when he said he respected him still vivid. His phone showed dozens of missed calls from Seong-hun. But Do-hyun couldn't answer. How could he face that child? At 3 a.m., opening another bottle, Do-hyun's hands trembled. If he had known that choice 30 years ago would lead to this. But it was too late. Irreversible. Minji. Calling his dead wife's name, Do-hyun wept. If Minji were alive, what would she say? Learning he had a son and had ignored him for 27 years. Meanwhile, Seong-hoon couldn't sleep since that night. The fact that Jang Do-hyun was his father and that he was a corrupt judge circled in his mind. After submitting his law school leave application, Seong-hoon waited outside Do-hyun's house daily, but Do-hyun never appeared, never answered calls. "Stop hiding like a coward and come out!" Seong-hoon shouted at the gate, but the house remained silent. After days of this, Seong-hoon sought another approach, visiting attorney Kim Tae-soo. "Where is the justice now?" "Seong-hoon, what brings you here suddenly?" "I'm the justice's son." Kim Tae-soo's face hardened. Now he understood why Do-hyun had been acting strangely recently. "I know about the past between the justice and my mother. The Park Seong-ho case 30 years ago. How do you?" "Mother told me everything, that he took bribes and distorted the verdict." Kim Tae-soo looked shocked. He had always respected Do-hyun, never knowing such a past existed. Reluctantly, Kim Tae-soo gave Seong-hoon Do-hyun's address. That evening, Seong-hoon visited Do-hyun's house. No response to knocking, but he didn't give up. "Father, come out." That single word cut through Do-hyun like a blade. Hearing father felt like his heart was tearing. Do-hyun staggered to open the front door. Seeing his drunken state, Seong-hoon was shocked. The dignified judge he knew was nowhere to be found. "Seong-hoon, what is this? Are you going to live hiding like this?" Entering the house, Seong-hoon saw wine bottles scattered everywhere. More than anger, disappointment filled him, seeing his hero's fallen state. "Is this how you've lived for 27 years after abandoning me?" "Seong-hoon, I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Seong-hoon's voice rose. "Does sorry solve 27 years? Do-hyun collapsed onto the sofa. He didn't want to show this state to his son, but everything was already over. "When you said you respected me, I wanted to die. Then why didn't you tell me? When I unknowingly respected you as my father, why didn't you tell the truth? How could I tell you? How could I say I'm your father, but abandoned you? That I'm the judge you respect, but actually took bribes?" Seong-hoon momentarily lost words, sensing Do-hyun's genuine pain. "The painful truth. Why specifically my mother?" Seong-hoon asked. "Why did you love then abandon Yoon Seo-rin with someone else? It wouldn't be this complicated. Seo-rin was the only woman I truly loved." "Loved," Seong-hoon scoffed. "Is abandoning someone you love for power really love?" "Back then, I was young." "Young? 27 is adult enough. I'm 27. I would never abandon someone I love." Do-hyun had no response to his son's sharp words. "You're right. There's no excuse. Then go apologize to mother now. Seo-rin won't forgive me." "Of course not. After raising a child alone for 30 years. Remembering his mother's hardships, Seong-hoon grew angrier. "Do you know mother cried every night? I heard her sometimes when I was young, quiet sobbing in the bathroom." Do-hyun's heart ached, and how hurt mother was whenever people pointed fingers at us. You can't imagine how hard it was being an unwed mother in the 90s, when finding jobs, housing, at school, fighting prejudice everywhere. Listening to Seong-hoon, Do-hyun realized how much he had ignored. "Tell me exactly what happened," Seong-hoon asked, calming down. Do-hyun took a deep breath and recalled 30 years ago. There was a construction businessman named Park Seong-ho, defendant in a major fraud case. Mother was the attorney for that case. Yes, victim's attorney. Seo-rin had strong sense of justice. She insisted Park Seong-ho must be punished. Do-hyun continued explaining the situation. Choi Soon-man's pressure, Park. Seong-ho's bribe offer, his own conflict. I refused at first, but ambition for promotion, anxiety about the future shook me. So you accepted. That night I tried telling Seorin, but I couldn't. Seeing those pure eyes. And you changed the verdict. Do-hyun nodded. Suspended sentence instead of prison. What happened with mother after? Seorin knew everything. Legal circles are small. Park Seong-ho bragged while drunk. Seong-hoon imagined his mother's despair then. And you separated, mother hid her pregnancy and went to Busan. I didn't know. Really didn't know. What would you have done if you knew? Do-hyun couldn't answer. Honestly, with his character 30 years ago, he probably wouldn't have taken responsibility. Do you know how I felt respecting you? Seong-hoon's voice mixed with tears. Reading articles about you, I thought, I wish our father was like this person. Tears flowed from Do-hyun's eyes. But you really were my father, completely different. What I respected was a masked appearance. For 30 years acting like justice incarnate, how did you feel inside when people applauded and respected you? Like hell, Do-hyun answered honestly. Tormented every night, especially after you appeared. Then why not reveal the truth? Apologize to people and receive punishment. I didn't have courage. Seong-hoon was disappointed by his father's cowardice. The person he respected was this weak. When did mother start planning revenge? Probably. From when you were born. Do-hyun speculated. Seorin writing articles. Exposing judicial corruption was part of revenge against me. For over 20 years. Yes, over 20 years. Seong-hoon was amazed by his mother's persistence, imagining the resentment and anger she carried. Final break. Now what will you do? Seong-hoon asked. I don't know. Really don't know. Will you reveal the truth to people? I should. Can't hide anymore. Then you'll lose all honor and wealth. Of course. That's the price I must pay. Seong-hoon thought briefly. I no longer want to call you father. I understand. And I won't become a judge. How can a corrupt judge's son speak of justice? Seong-hoon, you can't give up your dream. My dream already ended. Because of you. Do-hyun crumbled at his son's cold words. Making his son abandon his dreams was most painful. Seong-hoon stood up. I'm leaving now. Seong-hoon, never seek me again. I won't seek you either. Please, don't abandon your judge dream. Why? To become like you? That was a fatal blow to Do-hyun. Don't become like me. Become a righteous judge different from me. Too late. I'm already ashamed of being your son. Seong-hoon turned and walked away. Do-hyun called from behind, but he didn't look back. Do-hyun collapsed at the front door. He lost his son found after 30 years, lost again by his own hand. That night, the three thought separately in different places. Seong-hoon returned home and told his mother everything. Seorin felt complex seeing her son's hurt. Revenge was complete, but was hurting her son, right? Do-hyun drank alone, regretting 30 years. What if he had chosen differently? What if he had courageously stayed with Seorin? But it was irreversible. At dawn, Do-hyun decided no more running. He would reveal all truth to the world. That was his final atonement to Seorin and Seong-hoon, but he didn't yet know revealing truth wouldn't be the end, but a new beginning, with greater storms awaiting. Next morning, Do-hyun began preparing a press conference ready to confess. 30 years of hidden truth to the world. The wheel of fate kept turning. That morning, as Do-hyun prepared for his press conference, an unexpected call came. It was Seorin. Today at 3 p.m., I'm coming to your house. Seorin. With Seong-hoon. Now we must truly end everything. After hanging up, Do-hyun held the receiver for a long time. After 30 years, Seorin and Seong-hoon would visit. Together the time of final judgment had come. Do-hyun shaved, looking in the mirror and dressed in a suit. He didn't want to appear shabby before his son and former lover, though his hands kept trembling. He cleared away all wine bottles from his study, organized scattered books, and placed a 30-year-old photo of him. And Seorin on his desk both looked happy then. If I could return to that time. But time couldn't be reversed. At 2:30 p.m., Seorin and Seong-hoon arrived at Do Hyun's house, maintaining silence in their car. Seong-hun, last question. Are you really going in? Yes, mother. I must see this through. Seong-hun's voice was resolute, though his hands trembled too. Once inside, you might hear even more painful stories. I'm fine. I'm already shocked enough. Seo-rin looked at her son's profile. She hadn't known her solitary decision 27 years ago would ultimately wound her son this way. But regret was useless now. Then let's go in. They knocked on Do-hyun's door. The door opened, revealing Do-hyun in a suit. Not the young judge of 30 years past, but showing effort to reclaim former dignity. Please come in. Do-hyun's voice trembled. Seeing Seo-rin and Seong-hun enter his house together felt surreal. Heavy silence flowed between the three in the living room. Do-hyun looked at Seo-rin, still beautiful after 30 years, but her eyes completely different from before. Tea, perhaps? No need. Seo-rin coldly cut him off. We didn't come for tea today. The painful truth unveiled. I know what you want to say. Do-hyun spoke first. Sorry, please forgive me. But I know those words aren't enough. If you knew, why did nothing for 30 years? Seong-hun's sharp question left Do-hyun speechless. Jang Do-hyun. Seo-rin called his name for the first time. Do you know how much I resented you for 30 years? Do-hyun bowed his head. Every night after putting Seong-hun to sleep, I cried alone. Why must I live this life? Why must my child grow without a father? Seo-rin's voice began trembling. Every time people pointed fingers, failed. Job interviews, whenever Seong-hun asked for his father. I resented you. Seo-rin, be quiet, I'm not finished. Seo-rin's voice rose. What did you do meanwhile? Lived well with bribe money, respected by people. That's not what? Will you say you suffered? Seo-rin scoffed. Your suffering was chosen suffering. But our suffering was suffering you forced upon us. Seong-hun spoke with trembling voice. Since childhood, I imagined what kind of person my father was. Both Do-hyun and Seo-rin looked at Seong-hun. Mother never told me, but I kept imagining. Probably a wonderful person. That's why he had to leave mother due to difficult circumstances. Tears began flowing from Seong-hun's eyes. But when I really met him, he was exactly what I imagined. Just principled, respectable. Seong-hun. Do-hyun tried approaching, but Seong-hun raised his hand to stop him. But it was fake. All lies. What I respected was an illusion. That's not true, Seong-hun. I once truly pursued justice. Once? Did you say once? Seong-hun's voice turned cold. Then what about now? Have you lived falsely for 30 years? Do-hyun couldn't answer. Any words would sound like excuses. Tell me exactly what you did, Seong-hun asked coldly. In the Park Seong-ho case 30 years ago, exactly what you did. Do-hyun took a deep breath and spoke. I received 50 million won from Park Seong-ho. It was big money then. 50 million won. Seong-hun murmured. What did you do with that money? I made apartment down payment. And later used it for wedding gifts when I married Minji. Wedding gift money? Seo-rin's voice sharpened. My son's father bought another woman gifts with bribe money. That moment, Seo-rin's suppressed anger exploded. How? How could you? Seo-rin stood and approached Do-hyun. I struggled alone without money for baby diapers, while you bought another woman. Gifts with that money? Seo-rin, I didn't know you were pregnant then. Didn't know? You didn't want to know, because you had no intention of taking responsibility. The final break. Seo-rin's fury couldn't be stopped. I know how you lived for 30 years. Promoted, married, built social prestige. Never once looking back. I thought about it every day. Don't lie. Seo-rin shouted. If you really thought about it, you would have found us. Checked how Seong-hun was growing, how I was living. Do-hyun couldn't argue further. Seo-rin's words were all true. You were just glad we disappeared, so you could start fresh. Seong-hun felt more despair hearing his parents' conversation, realizing his existence was burdensome to his father. Seong-hun, Do-hyun cautiously addressed his son. I really didn't know. I truly didn't know you existed. Does not knowing change anything? Seong-hun's voice was cold. Even if you knew, you wouldn't have taken responsibility anyway. Do-hyun couldn't answer. Honestly, with his character 30 years ago, he likely wouldn't have taken responsibility. Please, one last time. Do-hyun knelt down. Just once, won't you call me father? Seeing this, Seong-hun grew angrier. What are you doing? Appealing to sympathy? No, it's really my last wish. A wish? Seong-hun scoffed. For 27 years, my wish was meeting my father. Now you ask me to fulfill your wish. Father, Seong-hun's voice trembled. What I respected was justice, truth, a person who kept principles. Do-hyun looked up at his son while kneeling. But you were the biggest lie in my life, the greatest betrayal. Seong-hun, calling you father would be betraying myself, denying everything I've believed. Song-hun's cry echoed through the room. Seo-rin's heart felt torn seeing her son's agonized state. But when she tried approaching to comfort him, Seong-hun backed away. Mother, you're also a liar. What? You lied about father for 30 years. If you'd told the truth from the beginning. You said he lived in another world. He really does live in another world completely different from ours. Please, please, Do-hyun sobbed, begging. Just once. Only once call me father. But Seong-hun turned and walked away. Seong-hun, come back. Do-hyun shouted, but Seong-hun didn't stop. Both Do-hyun and Seo-rin called after him, but Seong-hun opened the door and left. Do-hyun and Seo-rin remained alone in the living room. Their reunion after 30 years, but only unhealable wounds remained between them. Are you satisfied now? Seo-rin said. The revenge you wanted for 30 years is over. But I didn't want Seong-hun to get hurt too. Regret mixed in Seo-rin's voice. Were we too selfish? Do-hyun asked. Because of our resentment and anger, even Seong-hun. Regretting now is useless. Seo-rin stood up. I must find Seong-hun. She also walked toward the door, leaving Do-hyun alone. That night, all three felt the same pain in different places. Seo-rin searched everywhere for Seong-hun, but couldn't find him. She returned home and wept alone. Revenge was complete, but she'd lost her son as the price. Seong-hun stood looking at Han River. He never expected his 27-year dream of meeting his father would end this way. Drowning in despair that everything he respected was false, Do-hyun began writing a suicide note in his study, but his hand stopped. Seong-hun's words came to mind. Become a righteous judge different from me. Yes, there was one last thing he could. Do reveal the truth and open a path for Seong-hun to find his dreams again. Instead of a suicide note, Do-hyun began writing a press conference. Speech revealing all truths hidden for 30 years to the world. Dawn was breaking. An end and a new beginning. In this portrait of a destroyed family, a faint light of hope was seeping through. Tomorrow everything would change. Jang Do-hyun's 30-year myth would end, and the real story would begin.